face. Welcome back.
Serious business.
Welcome
Welcome
back,
back.
and just welcome to those that have yet to burn their eyes and ears on a live stream with us. This is Shellvedge. David, how's everyone doing? Got Ashwin, Welted Wares, otherwise known as Welted Wears, in the underground forums.
We are the world. We are welted.
Cool. So
how's it going, man? How are you doing? How's your
good.
How's your weekend?
Good. And hopefully, if as some folks join, let us know if we're actually if the audio is coming through all right. Otherwise, we may just ignore the world and just spend time one-on-one with each other. That's kind of weird. All right. Anyway, what's up, man? I know you've been getting a couple like pretty like unique shoes, especially that pair from what is it, Thon or Ton?
Yeah. From Hephaestus Shoemaker.
I almost made up the name of the shoemaker. Yeah.
Tanlay is in my opinion, is incredibly talented shoemaker based out of Saigon who goes under the moniker Hephaestus Shoemaker on Instagram. He's got like a few thousand followers, but he hasn't really completely blown up on like some other makers have, like say a Winson or a Macariello or something like that. He's been around for a lot less time, just for the past 3 or 4 years.
Yeah.
The thing that I've loved about him is just how much his skill set has developed, and he's got a very aggressive style aesthetic, but he's willing to work with you and kind of develop really cool shoes, and his skills are really like showing up in the makeups that he's sending to me, which are pretty cool. So
I've noticed his consistency across like the finishing, I guess, is has like improved a lot since I don't even remember when I had like the one pair from him. It was a while ago, probably like
you had a pair
4 years.
Realize.
Yeah, maybe like 3 or 4 years. Is that possible?
My first pairs with him were like about 2.5, 3 years ago.
So maybe it was probably around that same time.
Less coming on around 3.5 years ago. Like his stuff was very, very like aggressively stylish. Like, I mean, he's clearly a younger guy who was bringing in like excited about ideas, turning him into reality. But initially the execution, like he had this video, and I think it's still on his website, of like this really like intricate
I remember
shoe
that.
with like metal plate on the bottom. It looks like a fleur-de-lis on the base. And like this like double Norwegian. I was like,
it was crazy.
It was like just a test of skill, like, and saying, hey, look, I'm a shoe god or something like that. But like at the end of the day, he is actually quite humble and says, hey, each shoe, he's like, I'm getting better, and I'm going to work for you. And, I've bought enough shoes from him that he gives me pretty like solid discounts now. Cause I've written reviews on his stuff. And so I'm not getting killed in the wallet for the shoes, and the makeups are pretty awesome. But like, honestly, like when people ask me who I think of when I think of like really satisfying experiences in that made to order, made to measure, whatever you want to call it, not quite bespoke, but like remote.
Yeah. I mean,
made to order is the best way to describe it.
Yeah.
He's been one of the guys I've really loved.
Yeah. I was going to say he,
Macariello probably is top, but Tan is awesome.
Yeah. I mean, I think he provides like, so I think there's like I don't even know if juxtaposition is the right term, but like with Thon, I'm drawing a blank on, so like even say Acme or certain makers that are very like small in numbers, small in like production, but are like increasing in popularity. I feel like one of the things that they always like run into is a really great customer experience or client experience for the folks that have been around with them for a while, but then not so much for newer folks, just because like the sheer volume of clients that are like trying to get in there, and the nature of people kind of running a business through Instagram, you just get tons of like spam and garbage, I'm sure. So it's like, how do you right, like how do you like weed through that? So it just causes like, all right, I know Ashwin, so like I can respond to him, and we already know what's going on, so I can just jump right into this, and it's going to be a great a great product, whereas it's harder to build that relationship for the first time. And it's not just him. I'm just, his brand was the one that we started on, but I think even Antonio, I'm sure, like,
Yeah,
definitely.
Antonio's perfect. Honestly, like your long-standing relationship with Antonio Macariello has helped get me more connected with Antonio, just because you kind of vouched for me and said, "Hey, this guy's really interested in high quality footwear and has some cool ideas, and you should connect with him." I remember you did that for me, and he was willing to kind of say, "Okay, I'm gonna work with this guy. I'm gonna kind of what his interests are," and he was much more willing to listen to me after you had connected, which is it's pro and con. Not everybody has like the following that you have on
Right.
Instagram and we haven't connected, but like it's I can imagine it still seems like for people who are like up and coming, like once you start that dialogue, if the dialogue gets to a certain point, then he kind of starts to say, okay, I'm going to commit to this process a little bit more.
Yeah. It's so much just like
But
they have.
from the shoemaker,
Sorry.
yeah, from the shoemaker standpoint, like it's a bit of a financial and time commitment, right? Like how much are you going to really invest in like talking to somebody when it might just be all for naught, like it's always, I can imagine that it's frustrating because you
Yeah.
probably have tons of people who are starting up and just, close out before they do anything.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's a delicate balance of either just their turnaround time becoming like unmanageable and answering all of it on time, or it kind of trying to stay somewhat manageable and them just having to take the risk of like losing out on business, either because it takes a while to get a response to somebody, or maybe somebody just doesn't get a response at all until somebody kind of like rings the bell and is like, hey, like this guy reached out to you, can you make sure that you get back to him?
Yeah.
Because I think that's happened with like a few folks, with me and with Acme, with Antonio, and I mean, like I said, like I think Thon same kind of falls into a similar bucket. I feel like why am I drawing a blank here? Lee
Yeah.
Trung. I think he's still kind of somewhat under the, not under the radar, but under the capacity where he can still provide and still get to most responses. But I feel like once,
He's sort of like, yeah, he and Tan are like both cradle to grave kind of shoemakers. Like they do
yeah,
everything, right? Like Antonio, I'm sure, has some people who do certain parts of his fit and finishing. Acme has a team of people. Somebody like Tanlei or Lee Trung are literally like doing the whole thing. So
yeah,
like their production levels are low. They're going to cost a little bit more depending on where they are, and they're going to require more of a probably upfront commitment because it's a bigger commitment for them, to spend all this time without a financial commitment. This is their livelihood, like this is where they're spending a lot of their time, and I totally get that they need some commitment, which is why I'm okay with it. And I understand like what goes into making a high quality pair of shoes, and understand that it's going to take time. It's going to take a little bit more money than I would personally like, but you're going to get something that's really kind of customized to you.
yeah, yeah. No, I mean, I think, and I think I don't know how we got on the. I mean, well, I know how we got on this topic. I don't know if it was intentional or not, but
Yeah,
um,
I was actually kind of curious about your thoughts on like, one of the people who's taken MTO and sort of generalized it as a company is like Carmina, and I know like
that's
we've both had some interesting experiences with Carmina, but like they're taking this model where they've developed this tool, right? This kind of whatever 3D tool, and they run those MTOs off of that tool, and the tool's okay. It's pretty solid actually, but
yeah,
like like that's a way to do it, but not everybody has the resources to put together anything like that, right? So
yeah. No, I mean, I think that is I think that's a really good point. Like Carmina, and I feel like there's like a constant push and pull there of our bread and butter is MTO, but we know if we want to get new customers, we can't only do MTO because people aren't going to want to invest the time and money and risk of starting with an MTO. Um, so that's where like there's always that push and pull. Unless you're getting into like a full bespoke maker, like it doesn't matter, a full bespoke maker. But like I know
yeah,
Antonio always has that where he's got a whole backlog of uh MTO, MTM bespoke orders, but like I think for him, like while he enjoys those more, like his bread and butter is like those pre-order, like ready to wear stock um ranges, because
Yeah.
he knows that people are impatient, and he knows that like having that stuff in there ready to go, if somebody reaches out and they're like, oh, I really love that, he can be like, well, I don't have that, but I have this, and like people will jump. Whereas if he
Oh
doesn't
yeah.
offer that,
Well, that's where
he's missing out
that
on money. Not when that, I
well, the
mean,
one thing I
money's
brought up
not
in
all
my
of it, but yeah,
yeah, I think what the thing I love about Antonio and his ready to wear is that he's got a lot of his classical styles, like your Balmoral Oxfords, your wingtips, your Capto Oxford. He's got the basic stuff, but every once in a while he'll release something that's totally like kind of off the wall, like very would almost be a bespoke or kind of a really elaborate made to measure work makeup, like his chukka boots with the Tyrolese welt, or like your Prodeo boot. Those are boots that would be hard. It takes a bit of a risk to build out something that unique and that kind of stylistically aggressive and make it as a ready to wear or close to it. Like I got that chukka like within a few days of him posting it, because he was like, hey guys, do you want this thing? And I was like, yeah,
yeah,
yeah, I would love that thing. And and it's basically like I happen to have my foot happens to really enjoy Antonio's lasts for what it's worth. They're close to as good as my bespoke pairs. I mean, there's obviously some differences, but not that many. And I'm extremely, it just makes my feet happy to have his stuff. And it feels like I have like a bespoke pair, like just like that, with all these cool customizations.
yeah. No, and I mean, I think so hold on, let me grab two examples, because there's some when you had mentioned Carmina. Um,
Yeah.
I thought like this would be like a really good example. I wanted to like share something, but here, let me.
I'll throw mine up. This is a Carmina MTO that I made up. One other thought I thought would be kind of cool to talk about is like not getting too carried away with MTOs, like especially a brand like Carmina where it's like automated. Like how do you orchestrate an MTO? I
There
actually
you
would
go.
love to hear your
Hold on.
thoughts about like
There you go.
how do you. Oh, look at that.
Your
Here, let me.
Carmina. You were showing your Carmina.
There's Carmina. So this is a Chelsea boot. They're unlined Chelsea. This is kind of a ready kind of a model that they have in stock in different leathers. I decided to get this done on the Inca last, which is kind of a almond toe shaped last. It's got a little bit more of that kind of made to measure vibe, because they do a little bit. It's not like a true blind stitch, but it's got kind of it's got a fairly narrow waist here. And I decided to do it in a bourbon shell cordovan, a hatch grain bourbon shell cordovan. But I kind of kept the details other than that fairly simple. Like I could have gone crazier with like the welt color or whatever, but because I really wanted the bourbon shell hatch grain to kind of be a big feature, and the Chelsea boot is a fairly it's a fairly clean style. It's not too complicated. It doesn't have cap toes and all this other stuff. I thought that this was enough. Like it's aggressive, but it's not. To me, it's not over the top. I'll be curious how some of our viewers would feel about that. But like to me, this would pair pretty well, and still could be like a semi formal shoe.
Have you worn that one yet?
Not yet. I've worn it around the house. Like I mean, in the carpet and stuff, just to
Yeah.
make sure the fit is okay. But I have not. I have enough of. I kind of. This is weird, but like I kind of enjoy and I don't know, admiring, or is like kind of just getting into the shoes for a little while before I put
Yeah.
them on and really kind of grind away at them. Like
Yeah.
I'm not the guy who's going to just wear the shoe right away, because I'm doing a review, I'm putting photos on Instagram, and I want to show the life of the shoe. But some of that is like a few months of just appreciating it as like a piece of like art or whatever you want to call it. I don't
Yeah.
know if that's the right word, but like enjoying the artistry of it before I kind of crunch on it, and then I want to enjoy the how it evolves.
Crunch on it. I love that. But yeah, no, I mean, I think it completely makes sense. I mean, like sometimes, not that it's like too beautiful to wear or like you don't want to wear it, but it, let me, kind of get us back to like a even,
More split screen.
yeah. So, that'll work. Here we go.
This is the other beautiful one that I'll show you at some point, but I want to see your stuff and we can show.
Yeah. So, yeah, but no,
Oh, look
like
at that.
I completely get the or desire or inclination maybe to not want to wear it yet, and maybe it's just because like I don't have anywhere to wear it, or I'm not ready to like wear it yet. But it's not because like I don't want to, but at
Yeah,
the same time I kind of enjoy like just enjoying it in that original state. But um,
totally.
so like this is when you were talking about Carmina before. This is kind of like what like came to mind where like this is one of their ready to wear shoes from um I don't even know how old it is, but it's old, like at least like
Yeah,
4 years old.
yeah,
And I mean I didn't have it that long, but it was brand new when I got it like pre-owned from like Style Forum or something like that. And it just has like really like what
yeah.
seems
It's
to be like
beautiful.
flawless,
Yeah,
work
it
all
looks like it's
around.
lasted real well. I mean, it looks. Carmina seemed to really crush it a few years ago with like, bang for your buck, well produced shoes. I mean, they've had a few gaps here and there recently, but like I think they've kind of their capacity, their demand has outstripped their supply to some degree, and they're like kind of churning through shoes. But that one's just such a beautiful.
It
My
just
older Carmina shoes are just amazing. Like
right.
they're really really well put together for what they are, which is like a nice higher end Goodyear welted shoe, but like the
It's
way that the shoes are lasted, everything feels right. It doesn't do weird things.
right. And that's so that and then here's like the other side where you were saying they've really like steered into the made to order, and especially with this 3D custom tool it seems like,
Yeah,
and since I've worn this I really do actually like enjoy wearing the shoe a lot.
yeah, yeah. Still
But
wearing
it's
it
just
quite a
like
bit.
it's almost like they throw every possible option out there, and because of that they can't really do any of them well, because there are
Yeah,
so many options that I chose on this. Not even like crazy options, but like the
yeah,
the density of the fudge wheel, the color of the stitching, the color of the upper stitching. There are so many things now that they have to incorporate and they have to keep in mind
track
when they're
of.
doing this, that like
Yeah,
it's only logical that they're going to lose sight of actually that details of doing the shoe well. And like you can just see like hopefully you can see
yeah.
uh
No, I totally see it. I mean,
like
yeah.
the
I mean, we've
stitch.
talked about some of the issues that with the shoe. I mean, obviously it's still a very nice shoe, but you can see the welt stitching and a few things like that where they're just like ripping it out, or they're that like QC element because they've already put a ton of effort into the shoe, like just making all the different details, that maybe the QC falls a little, or like they're just like, hey, we can only do this, so with this many whatever skill craftsmen in house to like put this all together.
Yeah, I mean it's
um
just like hopefully I can
it's actually one
hold
of
two
my
shoes at once.
curiosities is that Carmina does give you a ton of customization. It's like almost like you have to be a shoe geek to kind of appreciate how much you can kind of customize on a Carmina shoe. Like you can choose the color of this upper stitch. One of the challenges with that is that the customization tool is not always
Right, there's just too
photorealistic.
many
It's not
things for
like
them
super
to.
duper accurate.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
sorry.
and it's just
I
like,
just
I mean,
passionate
it's
about.
as good as you can imagine, and it does. Yeah,
Yeah, but I mean it's
but yeah, I mean, I think that it'll be interesting to see. I mean, I imagine the demand for Carmina shoes are really high, so because they do sit at a nice price point for like the enthusiast. But like, I would almost caution people when they're making their MTOs to try to find a way to like, like kind of simplify a little bit so that the shoes don't get overly complicated. I don't know what the right word is, but like,
just like
I don't know
dumb
if
it
that's even fair,
dumb
but
down the
like,
options, but
um,
then at the same time it's like what's the point? I can do that
yeah,
through Crockett
no.
and
And what's the
Jones.
point of an MTO? Yeah, totally.
Right. But that's what I mean, like you
Yeah.
can just see like this is a much simpler shoe, but I'd take
Yeah.
the simpler option on this
It's
if it
executed
meant
really
like the
well, right?
same.
Like,
Yeah, like I mean you see how like cleanly that is cut. It's almost like cut right underneath the upper where you don't even
almost,
see it. Here it's like just
it almost makes me wonder if there's like a value in like considering Carmina's off the shelf options that they already have made up, because they're not like stressing to get like 1,000 MTO orders out like from a
right.
customization weekend or whatever they do in terms of volume. Like, because they have to and they're promising the shoes within like 12 weeks with all of the details and everything. And they do a pretty decent job in general at that. Not perfect, but decent. And I want to give them credit for that, but at the same time, like you can see the mechanisms straining at the edges for a company like Carmina, and I don't mean to bash them or anything, but they're just I feel like they've kind of
I feel like they need to hear it.
they're kind of pushing. Yeah, honestly, they're kind of like, is it a money grab, like to some degree?
No,
They're getting there. You don't need to produce at that volume. Like, I mean, it's almost like Alan Edmonds. You know, like you get to a point
that's my fear, I think.
where you start like Alan Edmonds is terrible. Like, I mean, and they used to be a pretty high quality maker and highly regarded in the 80s and 90s and even into the early 2000s. And now you're like, man, like I see these videos from guys who still buy Alan Edmonds and like, you know, from this 100-year whatever anniversary sale, and I'm like, that stuff looks terrible to me. Like the welt joint is in the wrong area, the stitching's all goofy, like everything looks terrible. And I'm like, why are you spending 400, 500, 600 bucks for like that? Like I no doubt Carmine is better than that from my perspective, but like
Yeah,
what if they continue to push this model and people keep coming into them, because they are probably one of the highest volume like upper end makers or mid-tier makers,
Carmina.
and they're clearly, like we've seen it, both of us have seen their shoes like strain a little at times. You're like, wow, like this is a little off, this could have been better.
Yeah,
Even with moderate expectations, it's not like we have world beating expectations. You know,
yeah,
we want a shoe that's going to satisfy us, but we also want to peer at it and make sure it's not screwed up. You know.
right. And I think like my whole, I guess, issue with it, like whether it's a money grab or not, like they need to make money. Obviously, they're a business. They're not
Yeah,
just like making shoes just to kind of be an artist. But
for sure.
at the same time, like they have to be losing money on MTOs when they remade this one without even telling me like 3 times. So like I didn't ask them to keep remaking it. They
Wow.
just had to remake it before they were ready to deliver one. So like that in itself,
Yeah. So that to me,
they've already lost.
it
Oh,
shows that the system is straight.
right, and that and then
They've lost more than the shoe they're giving you.
right, and then what happens on the ones and just disclosure, like where like this applies to like any, factory made shoe that they do
Yeah.
like MTO, TLB, and we're just using Carmina because that's what I have. But um I feel like it just
Yeah.
makes more sense for them. Still, they can still do like the 3D custom tool, but just like shrink the number of options so that they only need to learn and
Yeah.
perfect 20 options instead of
Yeah.
180 options. Like no one can
It's a lot of
execute that many that well.
yeah, and then you're gonna kind of invite a little bit more criticism because you're like, oh, you know, I'm on this customization tool saying, hey, this leather looks like it matches this other leather. Like a lot of people like to combine like suede and calf skin or
But
grained
these
and
two,
milled versus not, and like you see all those things together. I remember I threw together it turned out okay, but it was like
it
a
was
shoe that
this.
was not meant to be more. You there?
Yeah, it was this combination.
Yeah, yeah, it was that same combination. That same combination
Yeah.
on the customization tool. Those colors looked a lot closer to each other to me. Like Color 4 Shell and Baker's Hatch Grain. And granted, I had not had either of those at that point. Now I have both of those, so I can kind of know what those colors actually look like. But on the customization tool, go and check it out for those of you who've used
Yeah.
it. Like next time, throw a Color 4 Shell if they have it as an option, and the JFJ Baker Hatch Grain, the brown, whatever, Hatch Grain, and it'll look like it's a pretty darn good match. And like that shoe that I like, I mean, it turned out okay, but it honestly took my mind to kind of wrap around it for a little while because I was like, wow, I wasn't looking for a spectator. Like, I wasn't going for the spectator. I was
Right.
going for Oxford with a little bit of like pizzazz, and it's a pretty bold shoe, and I love it. But like, I also kind of came out of it not getting what I expected.
Right. It was like no, I agree, and like so I'm trying to find. I had a screenshot of the custom tool option that I chose, but now I can't remember how far back it went. When was that? When was that custom
Yeah,
event
that was probably in like October, something
of
like that, like
twenty
September,
of
October. Because I remember I
2010?
was supposed to get him in like it was the very yeah yeah back in 2010. Carmina,
It was
you know,
October, right? Is that what you said?
in Web 2.0.
Oh, I got it. Got it.
Yeah,
Got it. Got
it
it.
was
Got it. Got it. Got
September, I
it. Got it.
believe.
Got
It was the very start of their. It was because you were one of the guys who like beta tested their 3D tool, right? And like
it. Yeah.
I just used it and I got carried away and I made like 2 or 3 MTOs out of that. But I mean, Mine turned out fine. There's a few things that I
like
haven't really
that.
talked about on mine, but like,
Can you see it
yep,
now?
yep, yeah, yeah. Look at that. Look at that.
And
Yeah,
then
totally.
here, and then
That
this.
is what I was expecting. Like a difference in grain pattern, basically, right? Like you
Right,
see
and
the
here's
grain, you see the color core, and there's the reality in standard light. And if you go outside into natural light instead of fluorescent or indoor lighting, it's still going to look pretty different.
it's
And I
gonna
mean,
look even
granted,
more different.
it's going to look more different, right?
Yeah.
And so
And
to me, that is something that might under prompt somebody might get that shoe and be like, what, unless they knew the leathers and they knew what they were getting into. I think most people, honestly, when people, I know like certain internet, sort of shoe people kind of will kind of, they buy a lot of shoes and they put a lot of shoes out there. So you can kind of get a sense for what certain things look like. But like, if I were like only relying on the customization tool from Carmina, or it's just
that's a
hard.
drastic difference.
It's a pretty darn big difference. Yeah. And so, um, I just feel like that's where maybe it's good. Like it would be nice for Carmina or somebody, whoever is reviewing the makeup, to be like, dude, like that probably is not going to work so well. Or like that color combination is not what we expect, or like have some sort of like extra step. Or maybe like you pay a little extra to get like a consultant to sit down with that style and say, hey, let's hear some color correction. I don't, you start to add cost and time and all that kind of stuff and resources to it. But I feel like the model is a bit strained for a high volume shoemaker like Carmina.
Yeah. Now the other thing, and this is, I mean, this happens with all colors of shell. And I know you got to
Yeah,
wrap up
there's
and get to
variation.
your date, but like, so like this is color 4,
Yep.
and this by all means I think is color 4, but like this is
Yep.
bourbon,
Yeah. I
and
have a
this,
bourbon that looks
if you like look
just
at
like my color
these,
four. Yeah.
yeah, look
I mean, they look
that
freaking. They look the same to me, right? On this view,
right,
maybe a little lighter, maybe.
right, but these are two distinct different colors.
Yeah, that's different.
And when you, if I like just do this, that
Yeah.
almost looks like the photo.
And I mean, and really look at the difference between what the customization tool and the two different shoes you have up there that are all theoretically color 4, knowing that there's some variation tolerance you have to accept with shell being a little different. But that's, it's pretty different. So across the board. So like, I'm not saying that Carmina shouldn't do it or anything. I'm just saying that either you go in with open eyes expecting that, if you're interested in trying new makeups or new leathers or new shell, and you're willing to spend, between $600 and $1,000 and throw yourself out there, then sure, like go for it. That's what I've done too. But like every once in a while, you might want to prepare to be surprised, and every once in a while, you might come back with a shoe that wasn't built to the level that you would have expected because the system was
Just the
pushed a little too
nature.
far. Yeah, it's the nature of it, and like you say, they're a smaller company, but they're like now becoming that Alan Edmonds space. They're like taking up that space that a lot of other people used to occupy.
Yeah, yeah, and we gotta wrap it up. I think I saw a comment here from Ken when I thought was a good
And
one.
win.
Um,
That guy's the man. He's such a good dude.
yeah, he said that with the 3 tool things. All right, let me see if I can read. The thing about the 3D tool is that it differs depending on the device, which makes it difficult unless you really do understand the tool and how each leather actually looks, which I think is a completely valid point. I think
Yeah.
so I think it's hey, what's up, Antonio? I see you joined. Not Mecariello.
Antonio, I I was just about to put up this beautiful,
throw up your mechs.
absolutely beautiful piece of art that I have worn. I've actually worn it.
I know.
Um, and you can see just the beautiful rolls that are forming on that peccary. Peccary leather is amazing. This Noche patina is just something else. To go from slightly negative with, with what we've talked about Carmina to like, I know you and I talk about Micariello a lot, but Antonio's stuff is
Yeah.
just, just perfect.
Yeah. And I think like just I want to make sure I want to touch on
Yeah. Sorry. I'm gonna
Kenwin's
shut up.
is like I think it's completely valid. I think the counter to that is that Carmina has to know that, because Carmina has to know that they've tested this, and I tested it for them weeks in
Yeah.
advance, gave them feedback. So like I think it's more so like, how do they choose to handle that kind of stuff? Do they offer options, or do they say like, hey, like we
Yeah.
picked out your leather selection, we're going to reach out because it's a little bit different than what the site showed, and we want to make sure that we get your okay, or we get you you're okay
That's
to let us hold this order until we get the color selection that you offered, or like whatever they decide to do. I think it's just a much better experience communicating
I
and
agree. I mean, I
giving
think
people
it
the
would just,
foresight than just like dropping something that's like
yeah,
black and white
for
instead
sure.
of
I mean,
like two
you're
shades of
still
gray.
you're still committing like on a Carmina MTO. If you're throwing a decent end or higher end leather, you're spending
Thousand
between
bucks.
$1,000, right?
Yeah.
Around there. And honestly, like when we're working with somebody like Antonio and kind of making something up, or there's Tonley or whoever it is, they're going to come back and say, you know what, that might not be in your best interest. Like
Yeah.
that style that is in your head might not be as good to execute the way you think it is, because guess what? I know a lot more about shoemaking, and said in a very nice way, but like that step is not there in some of these automated tools.
Yeah. No, and I think like it's not a bash on like Carmina's quality or any of
No,
that. It's more so just like,
I just think it's like buyer beware in a good way.
right,
Like,
just need to,
just
yeah.
just be aware. Like not beware,
No,
but be
yeah,
aware.
kind of measure your expectations on it. But
And
yeah, I think
from a positive standpoint, Carmina is like they offer a lot of like options to like get into and get interested in new things, and like you can really explore with Carmina, and get a shoe that's pretty solid. And from my perspective, though, I'd rather personally at this point, for those as somebody who's gone through the journey from like
rather invest in this.
Alan Edmonds and all that crap, I would always invest in somebody like Antonio or Tanley, or
Yeah.
somebody who's going to make you a shoe and have that really personal, like great experience. And maybe that's just where I am and where you are, but like it's just so much more satisfying.
Yeah, I mean, I think like once you get to the point where like and we can wrap it up here. Um, but I think like my words of wisdom for this Friday, is it Friday?
It is Friday.
Friday.
Friday
Um,
in the U.S. at least. It might be Saturday somewhere else.
hold on. So let me get my words of wisdom for Friday out. It's like once you get to the point where like you've covered the basics and you're really kind of like pushing your comfortability, you're pushing your own limits to get something special. I think
Yeah.
you owe it you owe it to yourself to ask the question like, should I save up and get something like really special and something that like the experience is going to be just as good as the shoe? And that
Yeah.
doesn't have to be a $2,000 Mecariello. It doesn't have to be a $1,500. It's still, you can find makers that do that at a
At
thousand
much
six
more
hundred
price point.
bucks. But I
Yeah.
think like that is always a better option of going artisanal, going like specialized, where you get like that hands-on experience with the maker, as opposed to getting like the premium option from like Gassiano and Gerling or Edward
Yeah.
Green, because like you're just paying
You're
for
paying for
quality,
something.
but you're not getting like that
Yeah.
the experience that partners with the shoe that you're trying to create. And I think
Yeah.
like it's worth it to experience that.
I mean, I think what you get with
Makes it
like
a
a
little
guy.
more valuable.
No, I agree. I mean, I think what you get with Gaziano and Gerling, I mean, they're Goodyear welted shoes, or Edward Green Goodyear welted. Their main line shoes that are not bespoke or Goodyear welted shoes. You're getting a machine welted shoe, but you're getting pretty decent consistency. You're paying for like higher quality sourced leathers. You're paying for like maybe somebody who's putting together an upper really nicely, but you're getting a stock last. It's solid. It's probably a tried and true last. You're getting a lot of consistency and like the history, but you're paying a crap ton for it. Like you're paying a lot. And
Yeah,
like if I
that's
had
my
to put up
issue.
a 700 or like $600 ready to wear Macariello, or even at the lower end, somebody like Kenman's brand, Crew Nonpareil, and spending $300, you're gonna get something that's gonna have more personalization to you than than something like Edward Green, where you're like spending $1,500 for like essentially a very shellfish looking shoe. Not
Shelf,
shellfish.
shelf.
Oyster.
Yeah,
You get an oyster.
yeah. No, but I think so. Cigar had a question here too. Do you guys think it's better to go with Antonio by spending 200 or 300 more in some cases? So I think like we were just trying to answer
Yeah.
that question. I think it's yes, as long as that's within the budget. And if it's not, then it's like, do you need the shoe right now, or is it worth waiting like
Yeah.
another like couple cycles or whatever it is until you get that, because uh I think like getting that experience with Antonio or Acme or anyone that is going to like see you as an individual, not just like an order, I think you're
Yep.
gonna experience and value it like completely different.
Yeah, I'm
Um,
working right now with a new guy, Caio Torres, and I'm getting he and I are throwing some ideas out. And I just wanted to check him out because I've heard some good things on the street, and he's actually been kind of awesome. But yeah, it feels super personal. Like he's
yeah,
sending me his ideas. He's like literally sending me little video clips of like leather cuts and saying, "Hey, look at this," and like look at that. I am paying 700-ish bucks, $750 for a pair of his shoes that are going to be a spiral hole cut, like a very high quality shoe, made by hand by him, with maybe a couple other people in his family who help. And that is honestly not any different in cost than a Carmina MTO, maybe cheaper.
really,
And so yeah, 750. I mean, that 750 shipped to my door too from Brazil. So like, the risk is that I've never had tried one of his lasts on. He did take all my measurements. I had to redraw my foot and do all this stuff and measure myself. And he had me remeasure myself like later in the day. Like he was really factoring things in. And he's like, okay, after I went through all that, you're a UK9 on my stock last, but I'm going to make these modifications. And he's just getting started. And I'm guessing that if his quality is what he seems to be, his brand will continue to grow in prominence. But somebody like Macariello, I don't know how Antonio has done it, but he's maintained a really, really high quality despite extreme popularity. You know what I mean? Like
yeah,
Antonio is very well known amongst shoe enthusiasts. It's not like he's any secret, but he's kept the quality and the price to quality really high. But again, like you have to pay a little bit more to get that quality. And yeah, is it worth a couple, 200-300 more? I think that's just an individual. It wasn't for me 2 years ago, and it certainly is for me now.
right. I think it's part of a journey that you have to go through, because for like what made me comfortable with it is that I finally knew what I wanted. Not just from him, but in general, I knew that like I don't have any other examples. These are all, but I knew like I wanted split toe derbies in shell cordovan. I knew that I wanted lazy man. I knew that I wanted like, and once I was comfortable with the style, the materials, and I knew like what that look was that I was after, it was much easier to stop the masses, stop ordering, and just get consuming as much as I possibly could, because I was
Totally.
doing that to figure out what it was I liked. And then
Yeah.
once I
And then
figured it out, now I'd
you know what you
rather,
like. You love loafers.
yeah,
You like, that's your thing. Like I'm kind of a apron type of guy. And so he and I talked about it and said, hey, like I really liked his three eyelet. I started getting into, because of you. Thanks, David. I started getting into that whole seamless heel thing and just like the craftsmanship and the skill that it takes to pull something like that off.
yeah,
And the fact that this is really like two pieces of leather kind of clicked together like Legos. And then he was like, well, yeah, I could do that. But then he's like, you like aprons. I see that kind of in your stuff. I can put in this really cool this double Norwegian kind
right,
of double Norwegian stitch to create an apron. And that was his idea. And I was like, yeah, I'm going to go with it. I know I'm going to like it. And it came out beautifully because he knew that that was something he could execute well. And took the idea that I started, which was essentially a peccary, three eyelet derby with a no seam on the heel. Like that was the core idea. And then he turned it into something special just based off of our conversations.
yeah. No, I mean, I think that's like really helpful or valuable information for folks that are kind of asking some of the questions here, because it's definitely a chunk of change.
It is.
And it's kind of hard to put that down and realize that it may be like 8 to 12 months before you actually get the shoe.
Yeah, it is.
But I think like once you like hearing it from somebody, I think other, not that I'm like biased, but I feel like sometimes people like view me as like I'm like part of the shoemakers,
Apparatus.
and
Yeah,
like
yeah.
so like it's kind of hard to like take my word, but like it couldn't be further from the truth. Like I paid
I
for
love
these.
it when people on Facebook are like, how much? Where do you buy it? Like, I'm like, dude, I'm just another
What
dude.
what
Just like
size
you.
what size is the model? It's like there's
Yeah,
no model. It's me.
I had a guy on my channel be like, "Hey, can you compare all the lasts and insteps?" I'm like, "Yeah, like that's a lot of work. Like, I'm just an enthusiast like you, and we all have different feet at the end of the day, so it gets super complicated.
Yeah,
That's a story for another day, I
I
think.
love it when people like refer to me as the model. Like, what's the model wearing? And it's like, there's no model. This is just like my like Instagram page of like what I
Yeah,
wore today. Like, there's nothing more behind this. But
yeah, it is what it is.
we
So
can wrap it up there. I know you got to get going.
I'm down. I'm
Here,
meeting up with
well,
a
I'll
buddy
throw this one
from
to you real quick
Universal.
to answer for a cigar. And sorry if I'm pronouncing your name here wrong. I don't know if you can see the comments, Ashwin, but it
I
is.
can't.
I want to know what leather you suggest to try from Antonio for rugged use, something besides box calf.
Yeah, for me, it's a no-brainer. It's peccary. Peccary is a pig skin, basically, that Antonio has sourced uniquely, I guess is the best way to put it, because not all peccary leathers are the same. A lot of the ones that are out there from like Gravati and Moreschi and Carmina are this kind of almost glove-like soft version, and Antonio's version, I think it's as close to like cordovan, but not like
It's
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 more
got a
rugged.
retan. Yeah,
Yeah, it rolls a little bit. It does have these micro creases, but it just sort of here. Like if I show you this is the peccary. You can see like it does have these little tiny mini itty bitty creases on it, but it kind of rolls too. And that is just it just ages beautifully, and it has this it's really really robust. I've worn this a few times already, and I mean I take care of my shoes and I brush, but I basically all I've had to do the last few times I've worn them is just brush them at the end of my time, and I just put the shoe trees on because I always put shoe trees on. Always put your shoe trees in your shoes. And there's another one right there, peccary.
yeah.
So
This one's like 5 years old.
yeah, and I have another one that's a used pair that's about 5 years old. I think the same one that because you got this, and I was like, holy crap, I gotta get that. But that is a pretty robust leather. It's a little more casual, so maybe a little bit more on that rugged. For Cigar, who mentioned that like that was something they were interested in. It was a little more
It
rugged,
is really robust. It's like
super
it can,
robust.
yeah, like
It can
it
take a
doesn't.
beating.
Right, that's what I was gonna say. It doesn't like um, I'd say it's closer to a I don't know. It's much closer to say like a like buffalo or
Yeah, like a
something.
bison or something.
Yeah, like
Yeah,
a really robust like boot leather that you would think
yeah.
of, but it's much more like elegant and refined than that. So it
It's
works
kind of
well
a
on
nice.
dress shoes, but it performs I think very similar to that, where like you like this was originally Renwork's Thon Win
Yeah,
shoe, and he beats the crap out of his shoes. So I think that's just like a testament in itself
yeah.
that like these
He
things
wears the shoes.
these things live.
Yeah,
So
and they live, and I have a pair just like yours because I saw your pair, and I was like, I want that shoe, and you actually kind of pointed it out to me that my size came available on eBay, and I like jumped on it like a 12-year-old acrobat or something like that. But like, I'm a 45-year-old non-acrobatic Indian man. So just so you know, like I am not very mobile, but I do mobilize when the proper shoe is available to me. And so it's also nice for y'all to have a community of people to connect with because like David and I connected a few years ago now, and like he'll like send me eBay links. You'll send me an eBay link when something comes up there. Like, you might be interested in this. Like, that might be something you right up your alley. So, I appreciate that.
I don't know. I'm making like a tower of centurions here, I think. All right, we can wrap
All
it
right,
up.
man. Well,
I
I'm
know
going
you
to be
gotta
late
go.
for my meeting,
Yeah.
so I should head out. But I'm glad
Thanks
we
for
got a
watching,
bunch of
everyone.
viewers. Yeah,
Thanks for
thanks,
joining
guys.
Ashwin, and I hope everyone has a good weekend.
Awesome. Take care,
All right.
guys.
Thanks.
Peace.